On the first day after sugar release, your brain panics. It is taught to expect constant doses of sugar pleasure, and now there is none. If you used a standard American diet, such a reaction is almost guaranteed. But on the third day, cravings no longer control you. And on the seventh day, your hormones begin to stabilize, and after 30 days, you feel amazing. And it was absolutely worth it. Hello, Health Masters. Today we will talk about what happens day by day if you put sugar aside for 30 days. But most importantly, if you listen carefully, I will give you the knowledge. I will lead you to a place where you will be absolutely sure that you can do it. The first 2 days will be the hardest. The first and second day is a reset of the reward system because you got used to certain things in exchange for rewards, and now they are taken away because there is a neurotransmitter, a chemical substance in the brain called dopamine. It is released in balance to give you the right amount of desire, motivation, and rewards. It's great when it works properly because it keeps you focused, makes you curious about life and focused on the goal. The problem is that when we introduce external, unnatural things like sugar and other drugs, we produce excess dopamine. We get quick shots, dopamine that takes over the whole system, which is supposed to be precisely tuned and give us the right amount of desire and motivation to maintain balance. With sugar and drugs, we get an unnatural high in the brain, a brain stimulated to unnatural pleasure. It wants more. It learned that an instant high in desire and more of the thing that caused it quickly will make it feel great. So what's going on now? The brain learns quickly that it wants more of an instant high. You start wanting sweeter things, more sugar. In the case of drugs, you start with light ones, and soon you want stronger ones to get more quick dopamine reward. This is how addictions work. The brain learns quickly that it can get a super high reward by introducing something from the outside. Problem: you are never fully satisfied. Lack of balance, real reward. You're still looking for another dose. Good news. In the first 2 days, you can see the benefits for the liver. We have to understand how much sugar we eat. In the USA, we eat from 125 to 135 grams a day. We are not the worst in the world. There are countries that eat more. But big consumers, like children and teenagers, if they could, they would eat much more. Problem: half of sugar is fructose. If it's glucose-fructose syrup, it's over 50%. Half of 150 is 75 grams. Of 180, it's 90 grams. So that's how much fructose you put on your liver. And there are 2 things that are particularly heavy for the liver. It's fructose and alcohol. And you can't compare them. It's like comparing apples and pears. They're a little different. Both weigh the liver. In terms of the weight of the liver, 75 to 90 grams of fructose is more or less the same as drinking 4 to 5 drinks a day. In the past, alcohol fattening of the liver was the only type of fattening of the liver. But now, in a ratio of about 10 to 1, we have non-alcoholic fattening of the liver caused by fructose. You won't buy a whiskey or vodka for your child. So why do you buy him soda and cookies? It's almost the same. Apart from the neurotoxic effect on the liver, physiology and general health are almost as bad. During the first 2 days, if you put sugar aside, the fructose load drops rapidly. The liver goes from processing a huge amount of fructose to not processing almost anything. This means an immediate drop in lipogenesis. This wise word is lipogenesis of the liver, which means we create fat from scratch from something else. So it basically happens with fructose or alcohol. They are converted into fat in the liver. And now, when we put fructose aside, we don't have to produce all this fat in the liver. And it is possible, even in the first few days, to observe a drop in triglycerides, i.e., the amount of fat in the blood. It will depend a bit on how insulin resistant you are. Because if your cells are really insulin resistant, it will take a little longer than a few days. But the most important thing is that you have already given your body and mind the drive in the right direction. What you notice in the first 2 days will not necessarily be pleasant. You have to know it and overcome it. When you put dopamine aside, you receive a lot of rewards and pleasures that the brain was used to. there is a chance that in the first few days you will feel a bit awkward and unsatisfied. It's as if you were looking for a way to wake up and reward yourself. You may experience headaches, irritability, fatigue, and a blurry mind. If this happens, you have to realize that you have been doing something for a long time, and when you change it, the body has to recalibrate. Good news is very temporary. It's only for a few days. So to counteract this, make sure you are prepared.
And you don't want to miss meals when you put something aside. You don't want to say, oh, I'll throw everything away because it's only for the worse. You will feel so terrible that you will stop. Instead, eat regularly, but eat full-value food, rich in protein, and relatively rich in fat. And we will come back to this with a larger number of examples. And because you probably didn't teach your body to draw satisfaction from eating alone, you will want a dessert, something sweet after a meal. And here you have to decide that you won't do it. And in addition to making a decision, the best way is not to have any sugar at home, no desserts. Make sure you clean it all up before you start, so that there are no temptations. I can't count how many times I've heard the phrase, I can't do it because children must have their own food. Why? Why would they need other food than real? What is it in their bodies that they have to eat junk food? If these things are bad for you, and they already eat from 150 to 180 grams of sugar, and you're trying to limit it then, by feeding them with it, you provide them with every health problem you've ever had. It will probably be worse because their bacterial elite heredity is worse. Their genetic heredity is worse because they are one generation away from a healthy lifestyle. Treat it seriously enough to learn what to eat, and then feed the children with it too. The video is a dessert. You want to put aside white sugar, glucose fructose syrup, candies, cookies, everything with a large amount of added sugar, carbonated drinks, juices, dried fruits. I know the juice seems different, but the sugar in it is still processed food. It is still a concentrated source of sugar with the same amount of fructose as sucrose, and you want to eliminate other white waste. In addition to sugar, you want to eliminate white flour and processed vegetable oils. Everything sold in the store is vegetable oil. What you want to eat is butter. Eat olive oil, coconut oil, and natural fats. Eat full-value food. Meat, fish, wild animals, nuts, seeds. I don't want to shock the body too much, so this is not a ketogenic diet video. It is not about extremely low-carb food. The point is to put sugar aside in a reasonable way. So I think that if you want, you can still eat some cereals, but make sure that these are the best types of cereals, old varieties, which we have not modified, which are a little more nutritious and raise sugar slower. Things like rye, brown rice, cut oats, and the like. You can also eat a lot of green leafy vegetables, and pomegranate plants. I wouldn't go crazy with pomegranate plants. I talked about it in the ketogenic diet videos. But in this context, you don't have to be afraid of them. They are much better than sugar and these white wastes. And as a reward and treat, you can also eat berries and seasonal fruits, but try to stick to fruits that are natural for your region. Don't overdo it with tropical fruits if you're not from the tropics. But here's perhaps the most important slide in the whole video, which is understanding why you can do it. Because so many people tell me, I've tried so many times, but I'm still going back to old habits. Or they say, my biggest challenge is to stick to a healthy diet. Well, you have to understand, and we'll talk about it, and I emphasize that it's not about willpower. You have to understand once and for all that you are ruled by the chemistry of the brain and the things that affect it. So you have to set the game to your advantage. The changes and reactions of the organism we are talking about in this video are predictable. They will happen. Not necessarily exactly the same for all people or at the same time, but they will happen. Behavior is the result of hormones in your body, substances, signals that make you do something, and your conditions, the way you've learned to behave. And we have to understand that sugar is a substance. Basically, it takes over your body and think about all your physiology and nervous system as about the operating system. Sugar simply takes over. It omits all normal regulatory mechanisms, so your metabolism, hormone level, and all cravings undergo a complete change. They are fully taken over by this sugar,
and different people react differently to sugar. So the more you are taken over, the more you get addicted, and the harder it is to get rid of it. And these are the things you have to understand. Don't think it's impossible, just because you didn't make it before. You just have to know how to play to your advantage. If you behave carefully according to the instructions, you will gain knowledge how to renew your system. But what if you still don't make it? Well, don't be too harsh to yourself. You start over. And if you don't make it, you start over. Do you understand? The third and fourth day is better. It's an early adaptation. You're not at home yet, but the dopamine receptors start to become sensitive again. They look for other ways to reward and feel good. And natural food gradually starts to give more satisfaction. And if you measured it, you would also notice a greater stability of blood sugar and insulin response. You get a better stability of satiety after a meal. You don't feel like you have to eat a dessert after every meal. And your liver starts to control glycogen better. So no, it has to release it because you don't have blood sugar fluctuations. It doesn't have to spread glycogen and raise the sugar level to keep it. And this lipogenesis, i.e. sugar replacement, fat still decreases. So you move away from fattening the liver, and after 3 days, you start to see a change in your gut microbiome. You start to see a reduction of those often pathogenic bad bacteria that feed on simple sugars. And when it comes to what you will notice, you will have a little more stable energy. Not so many ups and downs. There are still habitual cravings. They are not as physiological as more habitual, especially when they are released at certain times, or in situations you have external signals that activate you, or there is a time of the day when you usually eat a snack. Your taste buds start to reset. They appreciate and sense the complex nature of the taste of natural food instead of only sugar, salt, and acid from fast foods. You also start to notice natural sweetness. Much more. Everything has a subtle sweetness that you have never noticed. If you have noticed mood swings, they will become shorter and less intense until then. Between the 5th and 7th day, the overstimulated circuits of the reward start to calm down. The brain no longer expects these constant doses of dopamine from the outside. The reward in the form of sugar, and your hunger hormones start to balance and communicate better. Insulin is a hormone that reacts to food. It takes the food you ate and introduces it to the bloodstream and to the cells where it is needed. So it processes the food. When the cells get food, leptin, a satiety hormone, says we are full, we are done, and we do not need more food. Ghrelin is a hunger hormone. When you are hungry, ghrelin activates from time to time trying to make you eat. When the system is taken over, these hormones are completely unregulated. They do not communicate with each other at all. But now they are starting to understand, stabilize, and work as they should. One of the consequences is that the appetite starts to respond to the need for energy. Your body starts to naturally sense how much to eat. And this is how every other animal on this planet works. They eat until they are full, and then they stop. However, in the case of sugar and processed food, we cannot do this because it omits these regulatory mechanisms. Until then, there are no restrictions. You will probably sleep better because less sugar and cortisol improve sleep. The cravings will almost disappear. This is a strengthening feeling of regaining control. You will notice that the satisfaction after meals increases. You do not have to eat anything other than real food to feel fully satisfied. You will probably wake up less often at night and still notice how the taste buds sharpen, how you appreciate more and more the complexity of wonderful flavors in natural food. The kidneys stop less soda because the metabolic load is smaller. Insulin pressure. Now the retention of soda and water in the body is decreasing. Therefore, if you suffer from hypertension, you will probably notice that it will drop by a few points until then. Day 8 to 10, your hormones are still regulating. So ghrelin, the hunger hormone, does not go crazy randomly anymore. It begins to find a rhythm that is consistent with the times of your meals. Your sensitivity to leptin improves, which means that you feel full, faster than you should. In other words, your blood sugar and energy are still stabilizing. And in the intestines it also happens. The composition of bacteria changes. Until the number of bacteria that like sugar decreases,
other bacteria producing short-chain fatty acid develop better. This helps to nourish useful bacteria and reduce the state of inflammation. You will notice that you have even less desire for snacks. You will have a more stable mood and concentration. You feel calmer and more stable. Now, some will notice cleaner skin, less swelling and puffiness. From the 11th to the 14th day, we are in the middle of 30 days. Now the benefits for the liver and intestines help each other. There is a reduction of the export of VLDL, which means that VLDL is a carrier of fat, a carrier of triglycerides. Because we do not have all this fructose to convert into fat, we do not have to export it so much. And as a result, it is possible that we are now observing a decrease in the liver enzyme called ALT. Not all liver problems occur with increased ALT, but if your liver was overloaded to such an extent that it was high, then you will probably see some changes by this time. So when the liver starts to work better, it can increase production and yellowing. And thanks to this yellowing, we are able to metabolize fat much better. And when we do it, the intestines also start to work much better. In this way, the liver actively helps the intestines. And now, what is important, we improve the diversity of bacteria in our intestines. We also increase the overall amount of short-chain fatty acids. First of all, the liver helps the intestines. And now, when the intestines are healthier, there are fewer inflammatory states, and it is a healthier situation for the liver, so everyone is happy. And we see a decrease in cytokines called interleukin-6, and the cause of the death of alpha cancer. And these are just markers of the inflammatory state that we can measure. And very often, by this time, we will see that their levels decrease, which indicates a decrease in the overall inflammatory state. And what you will notice are things like smoother digestion, probably more energy in the morning, better sleep, generally better metabolism, so you don't wake up so tired. And you also see some drops. You have fewer energy drops in the afternoon. This is the problem with sugar, insulin resistance and inflammatory state, that very often in the middle of the afternoon, there is this huge decrease. And now you won't experience it so often, and you will probably feel an increase in the clarity of mind. From the 15th to the 17th, you are halfway. There is a reset of the reward system and taste buds. Your dopamine system, pleasure system, no longer depends on external stimuli. It is almost completely where it should be. And also, sugar-related stimuli will no longer attract your attention. So, if someone eats a cookie in the same room, you will no longer have this emotional rush that you have to eat them. And what is very important, your insulin sensitivity improves and your overall metabolic state improves. And the things you will notice until then are an increased level of sweetness. You will notice more and more sweetness in everything you have never felt before. When you eat the berries, you will discover their intense flavor. You used to think that you had to sprinkle them with sugar or eat them with ice cream. Now they are intense in themselves. Real food will taste better and better. You will appreciate them more and more. You will discover that sweet and processed products will start to taste artificially, as if they were full of chemistry, and even spice up the nausea. If for some stupid reason or by mistake you eat something like that, you will not like it. And these were things that you may have eaten before. And I will not count how many comments I had under the videos in which people wrote, "I don't even want this anymore." And you can notice that your body generally becomes lighter because there is less pain, less stiffness, because of the inflammatory state. On days from 18 to 21, your metabolic rhythm returns to normal. There will be less fat in the liver. So if you had a fatty liver and you were examined, you would probably see some reduction. And what is very important, your mitochondria will probably start to work better. You will see an increase in efficiency. This means a reduction of reactive forms of oxygen, less oxidation stress. It happens in mitochondria, small things in cells that produce energy. It's like an engine. It uses oxygen to burn fuel and generate energy, creating something like smoke. It's inevitable. But when they work more efficiently, this engine burns cleaner. There is less damage, less decay and rust in the mitochondria, which is super important for your long-term health. And when everything becomes more stable, the same thing happens with the rhythm of cortisol and melatonin. your sense system and your sleep. And when it works better, you enjoy a deeper sleep and you probably feel more rested and alert in the morning. And until then, you also start to see the balance of dopamine and serotonin. And this is super important because the balance between them is based not only on sugar addiction, but also on the general ability to enjoy life. Dopamine is about desires and quick rewards. So sugar, drugs, and alcohol are the ways we use to reward ourselves. We get a quick reassurance, and the more often we use it, the more the body starts to depend on it. And then it happens that you keep chasing this quick reassurance. Give me another dose. Give me another dose. But the problem is that in the long run, you stay unfulfilled because you don't get the real values in life. You get them from small external stimuli. The counterweight, so to speak, is serotonin. It's another neurotransmitter, another chemical substance in the brain that changes how we feel. And it's about satisfaction and stability. How much dopamine, when it loses balance, says give me more, give me more. That's how much serotonin is a voice that says it's good, I feel good, I have enough, I ate enough, I'm good enough. I don't need anything from the outside to give me a kick. I think this lack of balance is a problem for many. That through quick solutions we learn to feel good only by eating, drinking, or doing something. If we get rid of the control caused by sugar, we can restore balance and appreciate other things in life. When these two come back to balance, you will notice calm energy and clearer thinking. Many people in stress want sugar or a drink because it's their only known way to cope with stress. Now you will discover that you don't need it anymore. And when these neurotransmitters stabilize, you will probably feel a general subtle mood improvement. You just feel a little better, for no particular reason. Many processes we talk about, neurotransmitters, detox, liver regeneration, and so on, depend on something called methylation. And certain vitamins from group B, for example, for the liver to be able to undergo detox and fat metabolism, it needs support and recycling of neurotransmitters. For the general health support of the liver, methylation is key. And there is something called homocysteine that can accumulate in the body. The liver produces it and then has to decompose it to keep it in circulation. But if you have a genetic variant called MTHFR, which has 50–60% of people in the world, you don't have this methylation. You don't use vitamin B variants too effectively. That's why your homocysteine can accumulate. You can't get this control over the inflammation you're looking for, and many of these processes don't go as smoothly as they should. That's why many people could use supplementation. I created a supplement for this purpose, U-methyl B, if you are interested. Do you want to try it? Link below. We are in the days 22–30. That's why we are enjoying the last week, the last meal. We are really enjoying the food. We are enjoying the nutritional value and proper cooking, and not from the effects stimulating similar to the drugs we had before. We will discover that all our metabolic markers will improve. Almost. And we are talking about things like glucose, A1C, insulin, triglycerides, VLDL, which carry triglycerides, fats in the blood. Now, when we process them better, and we don't produce them as much, they circulate in the system as they should. And we will discover that because we have less inflammatory states and generally healthier metabolism, the number of LDL particles will be better. Most likely it will decrease. Even if the LDL cholesterol milligrams will increase, there is a chance that the number of LDL particles will decrease and the LDL size will improve and increase. So, thanks to all of this, we will have significantly reduced risk or the frequency of cardiovascular diseases, type 2 hypertension, stroke, and also dementia. And probably the pain of the joints will decrease, and you will regenerate faster after the effort. You will see an improvement in the function of the centrifuge, i.e. the properties of the internal side of the blood vessels, their ability to adapt to circulation and inflammation, and when they work as they should, they can expand and shrink more efficiently, more appropriately, and you will see an improvement in circulation. In the last week, days 22–30, you noticed that the cravings disappeared. You regained control over appetite and hunger. You regained freedom. If for some stupid reason you found yourself eating junk food, it will probably taste terrible.
It is not called junk food for no reason. And you will also discover that you have natural energy all day. It does not waver up and down when your body works as it should. It produces the right amount of energy. In the last week, you will notice an improvement in mood, digestive functions, sleep, and most importantly, the ability to draw joy from life. Because you are starting to find value and reward in things that really matter, and not artificially introduced like sugar and stimulants. I want you to take up this challenge and give me a report after 30 days. But I want you to know that everything we talked about is predictable. It can happen at a slightly different time and with a slightly different force in different people. But if you start doing it, the body will react. It is programmed for this. It is designed to adapt and then reset. When you introduce other factors, when you introduce a natural lifestyle, it will find balance. If you like this video, you will love that one. Do you want to master your health by understanding the body? Subscribe, click the bell, turn on notifications, so you don't miss the movie that saves lives.